It's actually really good. I've been staying real busy since the book came out, promoting it and all. So I don't have much free time like I used to. So,
I bet, I
but you
bet.
get used to it.
I mean, this must be incredible because I saw Philip mentioned that you were on This Morning program in the UK this week. Is that right?
I was that ITTV.
That's right. Yeah, we have there's a kind of in the UK we have two major channels. I guess you have like the BBC and you have ITV. They're kind of the main domestic TV channels that are out everywhere. So you got a huge amount of publicity from that. So
Oh yeah, and then down here we hit a few TV stations down here and all. So it's been busy, and then I do a lot of iPods. I did one last night for a pretty good while. Martin Williams.
yeah, I know Martin Williams. Yeah,
It was fun. They great. The only
yeah,
thing I've been having trouble with lately, the weather's been bad. Sometime it'll knock us out.
yeah. You mentioned that sometimes the storms can take you out.
hmm But right now it's kind of clear outside. So,
I can see it looks
but
bright. It looks clear. That's wonderful. So fortune is giving us good weather. So man, it's always weird to ask someone who's had the kind of experience that you've had. Could you tell me about it? And I don't think that perhaps is the right place to start. So actually, I want to kind of talk about you a little bit. So what was like 1973 like in that October? How was the world then?
uh, well, I was working in the oil field in 1973, and we was working probably 16 hours a day. And
Wow.
I was engaged to get married. This was October, and I was engaged to get married in November, and I wanted to settle down a little and work about a normal life, about 8 hours a day. So that's why I took a job at Pascagoula in the shipyard. Actually, I was living in Laurel, Mississippi. It's a little small town, and I moved to Pascagoula, and I wasn't there but 2 days when this happened. So I lost my job there. Well, I quit. I didn't lose it.
Okay, so the job. I mean, so you say you're working on the oil fields. I mean, was that? I mean, I guess from a UK perspective, we don't have much oil fields here anymore. So what was that like as a kind of job? Was that the industry you were trained in, or were
It
you trained?
was, and it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I made good money. It was long hours, good money. Matter of fact, I did some work in the North Sea. I noticed that's not too far from the
No,
UK.
it's not that too far. No, it's between here in France.
hmm And then I worked in Libya and different places. So oil field was fun. I traveled a lot,
Yeah, I
but
was gonna say you sound well travelled then.
I did. Then when Jimmy Carter come in office and started hollering gas shortage, that shut everybody down because we started drilling. I made a lot of money then. So the oil field picked up when he hollered gas shortage, but the idiot didn't realize it was going to work everybody out of a job. So they quit drilling then because they had so much oil that we couldn't get rid of all of it. And then the strategic storage on it was good. So it drove the prices up and it cut everybody out of a job.
Yeah. So, um, I'm thinking about. I'm looking at the some of the information I have about you here. So, in that October, then, so you were due to get married, and then life literally um, changed utterly for you. What was that like to go from perhaps the description of the book here is that you were fishing and the fishing wasn't very good, and
No, the fishing wasn't good at all. Uh, well, what had happened, we got off work one day and Charles Hickson, the guy that was with me,
yeah,
and I decided to go fishing for a little while. And when we did, we found a place kind of off a little bit. We was going to go sit over there and fish a little bit, then go home and eat and go to bed. But it turned out none of that really happened. Matter of fact, think about it, we never eat. But while we was sitting there fishing, we seen some blue lights out across the water, and I figured it was a law because we was really trespassing on private property to fish. And I said, well, they coming down here to make us move. Didn't think much of it. And I stood up and I turned around and looked, and that's when I seen this craft sitting out in the marsh grass. It was behind us about a football field, about the length of a football field. And it was sitting there. Then all of a sudden, the lights got real bright on it. It turned from a hazy blue light to a real bright light, like somebody welding inside. So I stood up and I said, Charlie, and he turned around and looked and seen it about the same time. Well, about the time we both seen it, it was too late to run. There was nowhere to run. There was water in the front, there was water on the side, and this thing was in the back. So, we was just kind of stranded there. But it didn't take but a second for the beings inside this thing to get to us. I mean, literally, when this thing landed, it never hit the ground. It probably hovered off the ground a couple of foot. It was just a matter of seconds for them to get there. And actually, it was kind of scary because there was so much debris and all. If they'd been walking through it, it would have took at least 20, 25 minutes. But they seemed to float over the top of this debris about 2 foot.
Wow. So they left their craft? They came to you, or did the craft come to you guys?
No, they came to us. They
okay.
left the craft over in a little clearing over there.
Okay, so they approached you guys. I mean, what was actually running through your mind when you seen these? I'm assuming these figures. How would you describe them? What did they look like? Because I guess it was all in a second, I guess.
Well, they had. I kind of described them skin like a elephant. Or have you ever seen a manatee? I don't know if y'all have them over there.
I've seen them, yeah.
Well, that's how their skin kind of looked like a manatee, and they didn't have any legs. You could see the impression of where they come together, but they didn't walk on them. They just kind of glided, off the ground some. They had their hands looked like mittens or crab claws, what I called them. And I didn't see any facial features. Charlie said he's seen facial features. And a matter of fact, he described them to an artist, and they drawed.
An artist's
you've
impression.
Probably seen pictures of it.
Yeah, I think I have. Yeah. I mean, I can only imagine what must have in such a brief period of time what there must have been. You are now, I guess, you are bombarded with the images of a creature coming towards you. How many was there? Is it 2 or 3?
It was 3 creatures. 2 of them got a hold of Charlie. 1 of them got a hold of myself. But the strange part about it, as scared as I was when you first seen them and you hunting a place to leave and hunting a place to run, immediately when he grabbed me by the arm, it just relaxed me. Yeah. And later on, I had found out that I had some kind of injection spot on my arm. So
do you think then, I guess, suggestively, do they have some kind of a injection mechanism on their natural, like a pincer releases that, or natural injection into your skin? I mean, how do you think that worked?
I don't know. I feel like when they grabbed hold, it was kind of like a puff of air.
Okay.
That went, and then I got to studying later on. The military, when they give shots, they put it in a gallon jar and use an air needle, and it's not a sharp needle. And this is like that was because it kind of ripped my arm when I moved a little bit.
Okay. So I read the synopsis of your book, and it says that the next thing you guys remember is actually being left at the side of the road. I mean, was that your first thought from that point? So you saw the creatures, and then the next thing you know, you're left at the side of the road. I mean, how did what was the disorientation of that?
Well, no, they actually took us aboard the craft.
Okay.
And now this is where Charlie and I lost contact a little bit. They had me, and they was taking me aboard, and I was trying to turn my head and look and see if I could see him, but I couldn't turn my head. I mean, I could just look straight forward. So this one took me aboard the craft, and I do know we made a left turn and then turned right into a room, and he laid me on a table, and I called it a big ugly thing, what he was, but anyhow, this being or creature or robot is more like a mechanical moving, stretched me out on a table, and I was laid at about a 45-degree angle, And then there's a thing that come out of the ceiling. It was about the size of a deck of cards, and it was going rotating around her head, and it was clicking. So it sounded like, I'm going to describe it like an MRI that was going off. It clicked 4 times, and then it went back up, and this big ugly thing turned around and left. And when it did, it was a more humanoid creature came out. I described it as feminine, but I'm going to say humanoid because I don't know if it's a male or female or what it was.
Okay.
So they come out and they looked at the face and the marks, real good, and touched a little bit and give us what I would call a fair examination. And then all of a sudden, it went back into another room over there. I didn't see the door it came out of, but it just kind of walked back into another room. Now, this one was walking. It wasn't floating. And the big ugly one came in and got us and took us out, put me in the same spot on the river that we were, and except I was facing the river with my arms stretched out. And I couldn't move there for a second. Then I heard Charlie, Calvin, you okay, son? And that's where we came to, and we sat down and had a talk.
I can. So when you and Charles got together again when you were back on the riverbank, so what was who said the first thing? What?
I guess it was Charlie because he said, Calvin, you okay, son? And that's when I was still. They had just put me out and set me on the bank of the river, and my arms were stretched out, and it took me just a second to get up. Get to where I could move a little bit then. And he said, let's sit down and talk about this. So we both sat down. We had an old log that we was sitting on out there on the pier. And we both sat down. We talked for just a minute. I said, Charlie, we don't need to tell nobody. I'm not going to tell nobody. I said, we do not need to tell nobody this. We'll get in the car and we'll leave and let that be it. We just keep it between ourselves. Well, that's what we're going to do. So anyhow, we left and picked up our fishing equipment. We didn't have no fish, but we picked our equipment up and started walking back to the car, and it was a good 15 minutes to get back to the car, all the trash and debris that was out there at that time. And when we got to the car, I noticed the window on the passenger side had cracks in it or shattered, but it hadn't fell out yet.
Right.
So it was just shattered in place. And then when he reached to open the door, it fell out.
Oh, wow.
And so I figured somehow the craft or something, maybe the noise off of it shattered the glass. And that was safety glass, so I didn't figure it would fall out, but it did.
It must have vibrated it at quite some frequency, I guess, to cause it to shatter like that.
It must have. But it didn't hurt any of the other windows because I examined them. So we got in the car, and I tried to crank it, and it wouldn't crank. So I tried again. That was a brand new car at the time. It took me a few minutes to get it cranked and get it where it would go. So we left there, and he said, we got to tell somebody. I said, no, we don't need to tell nobody. He said, stop at the store by the phone. I got to call somebody and tell them. So anyhow, he was older, and I listened to him, which I regret sometime. We pulled up to the store, and he got on the phone. He called Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi. Keesler said, well, we don't deal with this kind of stuff anymore. We quit investigating any kind of UFOs. For you to call the local authorities, which would be the Sheriff Department for Jackson County.
Okay.
So he hung up, and he called them. And when he called them, they said, y'all wait there for about 5-10 minutes. Well, it didn't take them that long, really, to get there. They was there quick. So they pulled up, and they walked up to my door. 2 of them did. One of them walked up over to Charlie's door. Then they looked inside the car, asked me to step out, did a sobriety test, and to see if we'd been drinking or was intoxicated or high on anything. Of course, back in, there really wasn't no drugs. They was there, but it wasn't nothing like it is now on the street or anything. So they said, well, when they determined we hadn't been drinking and we was at ourselves and could drive, they said, follow us to the Sheriff Department. So we did. We followed them to the sheriff department. They took us in separate rooms and interrogated us. He was in one room, I was in another. And then they came out and they put us in the same, took both of us to another room, put us in there together.
Okay.
And little did I know they had a tape recorder in there and they was taping everything we said. I didn't know that until later on. So that's where what they call the secret tape come out. So in a few minutes, the sheriff walked in because this was a big deal, a little small town, something like this going on.
I can imagine.
The sheriff came in, talked to us for a minute, told us to go on home or wherever we wanted to. So that should prove right there we wasn't drinking because, we'd still be in jail if we had been.
So how was the sheriff's office with you, the guys there? Did you feel that they believed you at the time?
When it first happened, no, I don't think they believed us at all. But the more we was in there, and the more we had talked to them, and the more investigation they did, yeah, they believed us then. And one of them still works there, Glenn Ryder, I believe is his name. He still works for the sheriff department. This is years and years and years there.
So how did the press become involved? Because I guess the story came, it went national effectively. They went international in terms of headlines. I mean, what happened?
It did. I'll be honest with you. I don't know how it leaked out. We talked about it. We agreed not to tell nobody. The only way that I know that it might have is back then they wasn't cell phones. They weren't computers. Nobody could afford a computer then. So, but they did have scanners, and that's what everybody did for a hobby. They would listen to the police department and the fire departments and things like that on their scanners. And somebody probably heard it going on the scanner and released it. Because the sheriff department said they didn't turn it loose, and I believe them. They was pretty credible.
So from that moment then, so seeing those creatures and then having a situation where you've actually been interrogated in a police station, I mean, your life literally turned upside down. You say you were going to get married at the time. How did that happen? What happened with that situation?
Well, her daddy was a real peculiar man, and darn, I didn't want to tell him nothing. That's one reason I didn't want the press to get a hold of him, because I knew he would say, no, he's an idiot, don't marry him, he's telling a damn lie and all that. But we went home, and I wasn't going to say nothing about it. So I left, and the next morning the shipyard pulled us in there, and of course all the press was there. And I had one of the foremen not long ago. I seen one of the foremen from the shipyard. I didn't even know he was still alive, but he ended up being a neighbor of mine down here on the coast now. He said, I remember when I called y'all to come to the office to talk to the press. Now, we wasn't working just a few minutes. You on your hands and knees out there in the parking lot throwing up. I said, yeah, I remember that too. So after all the interviews and all, and we went to the hospital the next day. We went to Keesler the next day. We got checked for radiation. We went to the hospital and got a physical exam and got tested for took blood work and all. And after all that, that's when I left going home. And I didn't want to tell nobody, but they knew it time I got home.
Yeah, man. So I guess everything became upside down after that point, really.
Oh, it did. Everything changed. It changed my whole life. I went from having a good regular job to having to drift around to get away from the press. And that was like a bunch of leeches. They just followed you everywhere. And that's one reason I decided to write this book, to tell the story one time in a book, to document it, get it out. That way it's there. If they want to know the story, they can buy the book and read it.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
They can't change the story, because I've noticed you give an interview, and time you get through with the interview, it's changed 1,000 times. I mean, they say a lot of stuff that you hadn't said.
Yeah, a lot of it gets interpreted in different ways, doesn't it, to make a more sensational story. It's why I prefer when I have a conversation actually just to explore it in a very natural way, and I think it's the best way, because that way it's a testimony of both people. And I think that's a missing art today, I think. And I think there's certainly something that's becoming more prevalent on the internet with podcasts, the fact where you can have a conversation that actually is meaningful and genuine. So thank you for taking the time to do this one.
I'm enjoying it. I like talking about it because just like it is now, we just sitting back, talking like two friends, sitting in a room somewhere.
Absolutely. So you say obviously the book's now out. It's been released. It's doing very, very well indeed. You're saying it's selling out in America, you say?
I believe it's selling pretty good because every time I turn around, somebody says, well, we got one of your books, or we got 100 of your books. We sold 100 at the Pascagoula the other day.
Wow.
Because they want me to come to and have a book signing on October this year, 1973. It's been 45 years. So they ordered 100 books, and I'm going to meet up with them, and we're going to have a book signing and all. They're going to start a tours thing.
Well, that sounds like an ideal thing to do. So your book, I mean, how? So actually, before I go ask any more about the book, so obviously Charles released a book, didn't he, a little while ago?
He did.
Yeah. So in the time, say, between when the initial incident happened and obviously the press and you were drifting around, did you keep in contact with Charles during that time?
I did some, but not not much. We just have conversations if we bumped into each other. He had a place in Sandersville, him and his family, and I was back in Laurel, and they're about 5 miles apart, and sometimes you'd bump into each other in town. It wasn't no big, Laurel's not a big town, and they didn't have no big stores like a Walmart or anything. It had like a little Gibson's.
Sure.
And everybody went there, so, we'd bump into each other like that sometime.
Yeah, because Charles frequented the media, didn't he? He did quite a few conferences and lectures and stuff I saw.
He did.
Yeah, he obviously got his name out there quite a bit. So what was the reason why you didn't perhaps go down the same route? Because I guess you've kept your story quite to your chest, really, haven't you? Until more recent years. Was there a reason for that? Or were you just kind of trying to mentally deal with what the event was?
Well, I think mentally I could handle it, but I didn't feel like it was over and that I should put it out there like that, because I just had half the story, and I wanted the full story, so I wanted to investigate it a little further and find out what I could, and to go a little deeper into this, and
so did you
see how that worked out.
I was going to say, did you then begin to learn more about ufology and abduction phenomena? Did you meet anyone else who had reported the same kind of experiences that you were?
I did a couple of people. I went to New Hampshire. Have you ever heard of Betty and Barney Hill?
I have, yes.
And I got to spend some time with Betty Hill. Matter of fact, I spent 4 or 5 days with her just to see how she handled it and all. And she was a great person, and she really she must have been pretty strong. And one thing, she was in a mixed marriage, and back in the 70s, 60s, and 70s, that just didn't happen in the United States. That wasn't allowed.
Yeah.
So I got to spend some time with her, and I really enjoyed being with her. She made it easier to deal with. And we went out to a couple of places where she had sightings, and she'd sit and look on top of this mountain with binoculars and stuff. And we got out, and got to visit some for 2 or 3 days, and then I come on home. And then, of course, I met Travis Walton. After that, I didn't go to any conferences or anything. Okay. I made one conference, but I didn't really, what I did, I went to hunt down Bud Hopkins.
Yes, that's right, yeah. That was where I was really going to be heading next. So was that part of your...
I didn't go there to speak.
So did you go kind of a bit of a quest for yourself, really? You wanted to learn more about the kind of experiences that people were having, or was it just how to deal with the situation that happened to you?
Well, I knew Bud Hopkins back in. He was really into all this real good, and I knew he could answer a lot of questions for me. And there's one time I had a little missing time, and I remembered he had written a book on missing time. So I went to see Bud, and I told him, I said, don't tell nobody I'm at the conference. I don't want to speak, but I do want to see you afterwards. He said, okay. So he agreed to. He gave me his room number, and I went to the motel. And he said, Calvin, why don't you let me hypnotize you, and we could see what comes out of this. So I agreed because I liked Bud, and I trusted Bud, and I knew of some of his work. So he hypnotized me, and it's a pretty long story, everything that came out. Matter of fact, Philip, the publisher, was able to get a hold of the transcripts of that
That's
tape.
right, yeah.
He got the actual tape and transcribed it and put it into the book.
Yeah, because I heard that tape became something like a ufology legend, really. It went missing, effectively, it wasn't recorded properly, or there was no mention of it anywhere, and then in this book, there's a... And the reason I say that is because on Amazon.com, there's actually a really good review of the book. Actually, it's really, really lengthy, by a guy who's actually followed your case quite in depth. And he spoke about the tape was one of those things that was spoken about every so often, but was never brought to fruition. And he thanked like Philip for actually finding it and being able to put it in this book and kind of make it the centerpiece of this book. I mean, how did you like listen to the regression back like pretty soon after, or did you take time to process before you listen to it?
To be honest with you, Philip told me that I told him that I went to see Bud and he hypnotized me, but I don't remember nothing about it. So when he got the tape, he got the actual tape that it happened on. He told me, and he transcribed it, and he cut me a copy and sent it on a disc.
I get you.
I don't remember none of that because I guess he put a post-hypnotic suggestion where I wouldn't, but I was shocked at some of the stuff that come out of it. And what I didn't remember, it really shocked me too. But I had a friend to go with me during this hypnosis session, and he was trying to tell me a little bit about it. Then he said, well, maybe I don't need to tell you what went on, because he said as you get where you can deal with it, you will start remembering it. Well, and there would be a time when you remember it. Well, when Philip got this tape and I started reading it, matter of fact, I actually read it about the time the book was getting ready, and where Philip had put it in there. So everybody gets a copy of that about as quick as I did. And my memory's starting to come back on it now. I'm starting to remember. But it was a pretty upsetting deal. And it was a lot that went on. And just the tape itself is worth someone getting a book, the ufologists or whatever they call them, to read up on. But it's a lot of information in there. And I think later on, it's going to be a lot of information come out of it.
Yes, so the tape, have you, obviously now you've read the transcript, I guess I'll get to read it when the book arrives. Is there anything that really surprised you that had occurred that you didn't remember?
It was a good deal of stuff in there. And I really don't have the time, to get into it and all, but there was one thing that I do want to mention.
Okay.
Because the night that this happened, there was a car that was parked down there. I remembered the tag number under hypnosis. The tag number was on there and the car that it was on, and I've recently got somebody to run the tag number for me, got an investigator to find out. And it was a couple that was down there parking, and they had witnessed this and seen it, and it scared them so bad they drove off. Well, they got married later on, 3 or 4 years later. Well, he's recently passed away, and she's in a nursing home, and she was telling me about it, but she don't want to go public with her name or anything right now.
Wow, so that's great in terms of for you, really. I guess that's confirmation that
Oh yeah.
That I hate to use the phrase, somebody who didn't believe you might think you were a little bit crazy, you had so much to drink. To see that and to have confirmation that a third person perspective saw that whole event happen, that's got to be huge kind of confirmation that something incredible really did happen and something extraordinary occurred to you and your friend.
And it's actually several people that seen when this happened. They had a toll bridge probably 2 football fields away, or it wasn't a tow bridge, but it was to let these big boats under, and somebody would sit on it, and they'd have to raise the bridge up and then let it down when the boats go.
Sure.
Well, the bridge tender didn't see nothing, but somebody asked me why. But right after that, the sheriff department went out there and done an interview with a bridge tender. Well, he was asleep in a recliner listening to the radio, the VHF radio, waiting on them to call him to open the bridge. So, that answers a lot of that right there. But we had a preacher and a probation officer. Then a couple of days after this happened to us, the Coast Guard was called out to investigate a sighting. So they went out, and they actually, some fishermen had seen one under the water. And they actually took a probe, and they bumped it with a probe. And the Coast Guard has that in their reports. And Philip was able to get a hold of the reports on that.
Oh, excellent. So, I mean, even further justification that there's something incredible really do happen. So, one of the questions that kind of came to mind as I was preparing for this interview was, at what purpose, if at all, have you been able to conclude that would justify such a thing happening to people and yourself?
To be honest with you, I think this is my feelings. Nobody's told me anything about it. But my personal feelings, I think they put certain people here to study, because sooner or later I feel like their world and our world's going to come together, and we're going to have to live together. And they want to find out everything they can about us, and we need to know everything we can find out about them. And I feel like that's really what we do in here. And maybe we an experiment to them, because we've experimented on animals. And
yeah, it's a powerful thing, because if we were to look at, say, if you were to find a tribe in the jungle, or some things they do every so often, they kind of want to investigate them, look at them, kind of want to sample them, learn about their behavior and what they do. And when you look at, say, the abduction phenomenon, a lot of people say that that's what they feel that we are to them. They're probing us and testing us and trying to learn as much about us as they can.
Yeah, that's true. Who knows? We might be their pets or something right now.
Maybe.
I know after this, I've started watching, like we got a little rescue dog that come up here a few years ago, and I started watching. I never knew how much feelings the animals and all have. And shoot, they just like people or anything else. They have fears, they have feelings, and this little dog's like family. Something happened to him, it's going to be bad on the whole family. And I started watching animals and trying to learn from this to see if maybe they're treating us kind of like that, like experiments. So that's one place I'm going. And the earth, I mean, look what we're doing to the earth, the people that live here. Absolutely. They destroying it. And if they let us destroy the earth, then they won't have nowhere to come.
You're right. If they're intent on coming here to live, to colonize, or to live with us, I mean, what we're doing here is atrocious to our planet. It's the only place that we know that supports our form of life. I mean, you would think we'd want to take better care of it.
Oh, you would, and it would be hard for me to believe. I have my opinion on this. I know it's a lot of people that don't believe, and skeptical and all that, but my opinion, they want to believe. But you got to be fairly narrow-minded not to believe a lot of this stuff going on. Look at the different suns out there. All them's stars and all. And it's got planets around them, and it's no doubt in my mind it's other life. God put other life around it.
Yeah, and if they can come here, I can only imagine that we might one day reach out to them and say hello properly and handshake ourselves in space. I mean, that is what we want to do. And talking of that, I saw your president, Donald Trump, made that Space Force kind of interview last week. He made an announcement that he wants to create a fifth military place. And I kind of thought, how does that play into ufology? How does that play into the UFO phenomenon? Is that do you think perhaps he's been tapped up with some knowledge that someone actually is out there, so we have to do something to defend ourselves against something from an extraterrestrial point of view?
Well, I thought about that. I listened to the same thing, and there's some reason that's causing this right now. And the now normal people might not never know, but for something put them on defense, put our government on defense over there. So who knows?
Yeah, it's a huge amount of money to make an investment such as that. And it's like, well, if it's from an earthbound enemy, whether we say that's China or Russia or even Australia or whatever, who has the capability of spaceflight, it seems counterintuitive or counterproductive, should we say, to do that. But if it's an extraterrestrial threat, it certainly makes sense.
Right. I believe the United States should be strong enough to handle about any threat it gets from Earth. And I don't think nothing would put them on guard like an extraterrestrial threat, or they feel like a threat. Now, what it is, we have all these politicians, and none of them really no good because they don't want to get along.
No.
They need to get along and sit down and settle this thing and work with the people, and the people would help them spot and look and talk and do interviews, and they could find out a lot more than they can by getting rigged up to go start shooting up a bunch of things.
Absolutely.
Because I tell you, from what I've seen, the technology that they have, we don't want to make them mad. We don't want to really upset them because they're going to win a war. We was at the shipyard, and the day after this happened, there was a bunch of these rednecks down here. They said, "Are you coming? You going to go with us?" I said, "Go where?" They said, "Well, we all got our shotguns and our rifles and pistols and boats. We fixed to go hunt them down, bring them in." I said, "Oh, y'all don't want to do that." I said, "They're going to melt you down eyeballs out along with the boats and your rifles." I said, "Y'all don't do that." Of course, they couldn't catch them anyway. But anyhow, that's just the mentality of the people. So, we got to change the people.
Yeah.
The citizens in the world, not just one country, but all the citizens in the world, they have to change and have a better attitude and want to get along a little better with each other and everything else. Because we can accomplish a lot more with other countries and with us to be a lot more diplomatic and to get along.
Yeah, there is. There's so much possibilities. So only like to reach out for the stars, I think, is kind of like the humanity's kind of... It's a sense that we all have, I think. We want to reach out there. We want to touch the stars, effectively. And that's been with humans since, like, the beginning. The first stories were about...
Right.
Yeah, and you think, well, if this is where we're trying to go, perhaps instead of, bothering with each other, we should try and work cooperatively to that very end.
Exactly right. I mean, it's always... Of course, the Bible says it's always going to be wars and rumors of wars. But that's ridiculous. I mean... one war causes a bigger problem. Like, Bush went in on Iraq and took out Saddam Hussein. Well, Saddam Hussein wasn't a good man. He was evil. But what he did, he kept all them in check over there because everybody was scared of him. So when they took him out, then we had ISIS come in. They were really evil then. They was better off under Hussein, his people, than they were ISIS.
Yeah, the geopolitical side of things is it's a mess right now, utter mess.
It is, and look at and before it's over, the United States and North Korea will be into it, because Bush, he can't hold his trigger finger, North Korea can't hold his mouth, and they're gonna get to popping off to each other, and they're gonna let their tempers flare, and one day they're gonna wipe out South Korea over there. And a lot more countries.
Yeah. So one of the thoughts I had quite a while ago, I wrote an article about it, is that in the ancient times, so we look at, say, something like the pyramids or Teotihuacan, and you see how it must have taken generations to build those structures, and but the whole civilization must have been in on building it. So everyone, whether from the constructions, the ideal of what they wanted to build, and they never saw the end of it, apart from the people at the very end of its construction. And how much dedication that would take, whether that be faith or whether that be idealism or an ideology. But when it's completed, it's like it took everyone's effort over multiple generations to achieve those buildings. And I kind of wonder, how would that scale up today? Is that if we could put like 7 million people on a particular project, or 7 billion people, to build something of that kind of scale now? I mean, Could we actually build like the International Space Station the way it's supposed to be? Could we actually build a if we were all working towards a common goal of something, could we actually build a colony ship and head out to those stars? I mean, what's your thoughts about that?
Oh, I believe we could. There is some brilliant minds all over the world. I mean, in every country, they have some geniuses there that can engineer something like this, and there's people that can put the labor into it, and we'd accomplish a lot more by doing that, working together and getting along, than what we would. Well, even, I don't know how your religious views are, but like in the Bible, when they started building a tower going up and it got so tall that God just got them where they spoke different languages so they couldn't communicate, and that broke all that up. And then I've often wondered, look at the Mayas, they just disappeared over there.
They did indeed, yeah.
Just things like that. I love history.
Me too. It's something of a passion of mine. So looking at like ancient cultures and mythology, and you kind of wonder what happens, and are we learning from history? Is that kind of is the thought going forward? I mean, what can we learn from what went wrong? And the way that the world is right now, it's difficult to see anyone's actually learning at all.
No, I don't believe they are, and that's why I completely 100% stay out of politics, or try to. I got a Facebook page, and they come on, and somebody writes something smart and all. I just send them leave the politics off my Facebook page. I'd rather talk about something more important, such as they had an experience or a paranormal experience or something like that. Let's talk about that a little bit and try to investigate it and see what's going on. Let's don't go and run down all these politicians that's not worth the words in your mouth anyhow.
No, you're absolutely right. So when it comes to paranormal experiences, I mean, have you had anything other paranormal happen to you since that kind of experience happened to you back in the 1970s?
Well, in the 90s, I felt like, I had that missing time that come up. I left one day going fishing, and this was early in the morning. I was going to be back at the house. I was going to an island. So I was supposed to be back at home by 3 o'clock. It wasn't but an hour and a half to the island both ways. And at 3 o'clock that evening, but it was 3, 4 o'clock the next morning, I come to, and I didn't know where I'd been. That's where I went to see Bud Hopkins on that missing time there. I just lost all that time in between there, and I couldn't account for it. And I know I wasn't conscious because I took a lunch with me, and I didn't eat my lunch. And I said, well, hell, I don't know. So I went on home, and it really bothered me. I mean, it got to worrying me a lot.
Yeah, because I guess thinking about it, when you miss time, it's like you're missing a part of yourself. There's a whole section of time, knowledge, and experience, or a period of passing where there's no recollection of anything. Have you sought? Is that when you went to Bud Hopkins and he did the regression for that period of time, or did Bud do the regression of much earlier place in your life?
No, that's when I went to see Bud in the 90s, and he did it that period of time. But what come out, there was a lot that come out of that, and it's documented in the book. It's written down. It comes straight out of the tapes. And I never really thought about paranormal too much, but my daughter married a man, and his father is into the paranormal. They investigate it, and they got all these tools and equipment and all. He invited me one night to go with him and to a plantation house over there, and he says, come, it might not be nothing happened, and it could be something. And we sat there probably 6 hours and just watched different films go on a loop and all of a sudden there was the camera, something took and slung it across the room, and you could actually see the camera when it got slung out. So, that kind of got my attention there. Something's going on. And who knows?
Yeah, who knows indeed. I mean, it's part of the reason why we keep asking questions, isn't it? And when you think about, say, in the paranormal, some people would say that's just ghosts or spirits or entities of some kind. Do you think they actually are the same phenomenon, or are they separate things? Do you think that, shall we say, extraterrestrials have these abilities, or they are natural abilities? I'm not really sure how I'm going
To
to
me,
phrase that better.
now the way that I feel, and there's nothing to back this up or to guarantee it, but the way I feel, we probably live. It's hard to say. All right, we right here talking, but there's another dimension right here by us, and I think it's a complete other life, going on in this dimension.
Okay.
And sometime they might learn how to get through that dimension or come over here. Now, I really believe that from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah, I got to interview someone in 2007 who had experienced what is known as phantom scenery from a place not too far from here, actually, where they saw a battlefield open up in front of them between there's a fight between the Roundheads and the Cavaliers, who basically was Parliament and the royal family back in the 1600s, and I've been to that field, and I've heard what sounds like musket shots, and I've heard voices, and I'm going, there's no one around here. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
And I guess with that amount of motion and I guess death and tragedy and feeling, and I wonder if that somehow breaks the dimensional the rift, as it were. There's such a willing and a need or a yearning and calling out from young people who are dying for their parents and their mothers or whatever. That energy, or if that's even the word, is that somehow how they break through? And it's a fascinating subject to discuss.
Oh, it is. I know a young lady that I can't call her name and all because she'd be upset.
Sure.
But she can actually astral project herself into other places now. You can go in, you can put her in this room in here, and it takes her a few minutes to get in a trance. And I've seen it with my own eyes. And go to another room and lay an assortment of books out and pick a page or something in that book. And there's no way she can know which one it is. And she can tell you what the book's about and what page it was on, or she could tell you what's going on in another country in different places. And I believe her because I'm one of these type people. Show me and I believe it.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing, like remote viewing. I still wonder, like the example you gave there with the book was one I've heard a few times, and I still wonder. So if the book is closed or it's on a side, how do they manage to read the book? Does that mean there's somehow their eyes somehow like a floating camera, effectively? Is that what they're looking at, or are they just receiving the information from what it is that they're mentally thinking about? And that is fascinating in itself, whichever way that they're reading it or understanding it.
Yeah, and she said it started just with her in bed one night, and then it just kept working. It said anybody could do it, but I've always been too afraid to get with her and try it. I don't know.
Maybe
Never really had the time.
I still wonder, perhaps is that perhaps the way we should explore the universe? Perhaps we should go into trance, and then we should take our minds out and go and have a look around the solar system, as it were.
Well, I think it's possible. I really believe we can. At one time, the military was experimenting on different things like that. And they might still be, I don't know, but I heard that they had quit. And like ESP and astral projecting into somewhere and spine. And Hitler was big into that stuff.
Yeah, I've heard that. So yeah, the occult side of things.
Right.
People like Ingo Swann and stuff heavily investigated and was tested upon as part of that. Amazing when you think how many subjects that are out there are paranormal and are unexplained. There actually might be a consistent theme or a link actually connecting them all together.
I feel like it is. And like I say, I think we live in this dimension, and if you just stick your hand over to the right, it's probably someone or somebody else right there in that dimension. If we could just learn to break through it, and no telling what we could learn, no telling how fast we could travel or where we could go if we could do that.
Absolutely. I mean, some people say they see the dark shadows, or they see people at the corner of their eye, and they turn around and they're gone. And is that someone breaking through, or are you looking into another dimension at that time? Who knows? Yeah.
And I've have you ever been somewhere and just sensed you've been there before?
I certainly have, yeah.
No, yeah, I've done that before and just knew I'd been there, and I've never been there, but it looked just like it had before. So, it's just little things like that people have to realize.
And you feel like entirely comfortable with it, and it feels like it's like second nature to know these things here. And you just go with it, and that I've had that a few times.
But I think the point here is that we need to work for things like that and to go toward that direction instead of working toward building nuclear bombs and blowing each other up. Because one day that's going to be the destruction of the world.
Yeah, it is.
So it's nothing to play with.
No, no, it's not. So, I mean, is there anything you? Actually, there was something I was going to ask you. How did your relationship begin with Philip Mantle about this book?
Well, I had did a podcast for some reason. I don't know why, but Martin Williams had got a hold of me a few years back, and he wanted to do a podcast, and I said, well, I will. I don't know what I'm going to say or nothing. He said, well, just come on the show, say hi, and bye. So I did that, and he had got my email address from that. Well, Philip was in search of trying to find me, and Martin says, well, I know where he is. I have his email address. So Philip emailed me, and we started talking. And actually, we had talked about doing a book, and I really wasn't interested in doing it. Between my wife and Philip, though, they talked me into it. And one thing it was, a friend of mine or a neighbor of ours had passed away. We was at a wake. And while we was at this wake, I went to the wake. People wouldn't leave me alone, and it was taking the attention away from the family at the wake, and I didn't like that, so I left. But anyhow, they was coming up wanting their picture and their autograph, and what had happened, I had signed. Usually I don't sign my name on nothing or anything, but I had signed my name on the thing where you visitation sheet there, and they seen that, and that started to get right there. So I told my wife, I said, we got to leave because I'm not taking attention away from this family for this bull. So we left, and she said, you know, you need to write a book. Well, I never thought nothing about it, and I guess it was just one of these things that was meant to be, because after we talked about it that evening, then Philip got a hold of me.
Oh, the power of coincidence, eh?
He emailed me. He found the email address through Martin. So he had got a hold of me, and that's the biggest blessing I ever had when he did. Now, and we'd like not to got on the right page with it. He said, well, have you started writing a book? I said, no. Well, maybe, I don't know. I, just taking notes down for my own personal use, really. Well, send me what you got. Well, I sent him what I had in there. And he emailed me back. He said, Qualvin, that's quite a mess, but we can make something out of it. We worked together. And that's how we got started. And he's been great through the whole deal. I mean, he's worked really hard. He's kept me on the right track. And between me and him both, we put this together. Because I had the story and he had the research. And it's just worked out good.
So how long did it take, say, from that point then to, say, getting the book published? How long did that take as a period of time?
I'm going to guess a couple of months. Because he had asked me one time, he said, oh, don't worry about it. We got this year, we got next year, we got the other year. And I said, I don't know why it's going to take so long. I was thinking to myself, I said, hell, I can sit down and read a book in just a few minutes. I mean, a couple of days. Should be able to write one in that time. Well, being he was putting everything together, like the clippings, the articles, and sending off and getting the tapes and all that, that left me time to really kind of put my story down. And I got in the room one night, locked the door, and I told everybody just stay away from me for about a week. And they'd bring me food to the door, and that's what I'd do. Sometime I'd eat a little bit. Sometime I'd lay down and take a nap if I got sleepy. And I'd come out every day or two and take a shower. And I'd go right back in there and not see nobody. I didn't want to talk to nobody, be around. But that's the type person I am. If I have a job to do, I take it serious.
Yeah.
I mean, dead serious. And I'm going to do the job, and I'm going to get it done the best that I can and the best I know how. And I've been that way all through my life, and I made a lot of money doing that and made people I work for a lot of money. And that's the way I treated this book, like a job.
Yeah, it's a fair way to run things. You put your mind in the right place, and you work hard, and you get the results at the end of it. So.
And like I say, my intentions was really never to write a book, but I think it's a good thing now. At this point in my life, it gave me something to do. It got my mind off a lot of things. I had a son that passed away,
Oh,
so
I
I
didn't
try
know
to
that.
stay busy so I don't think about that. And then I had a brother not too long ago that passed away, and he's always tried to get me to write a book, and I just wish he was here so he could get him a copy. 'Cause he wanted that more than anything. Because I've never sat down and talked to my family about it. I've never talked to my friends. And the friends that I do have are true friends. I mean, I don't just make friends with anybody. I more or less investigate them, and they do me. But we got a group of friends when we bought this house down here. We all meet during the summer. We'd fish, and we'd go out on. We got one friend that's got a big houseboat, a big nice houseboat, and we'd all meet him over there, and he'd take it out to the sandbars. We'd go out and barbecue, visit. Some of us have a few drinks, and swim, and talk, and we spend the holidays there. And we meet every year doing that.
Sounds wonderful.
And that's just the kind of friends I have. Then during the winter, we all go our separate ways. They have camps down here, but they have houses elsewhere, and we all split up and go separate ways. So that's just the way we are. And one of us need anything, all you got to do is drop a dime and call, and they there. Like when my house flooded, I was having to rip the carpet and the floors out and all, and I didn't want to go back with carpet no more.
Huh.
So I went with ceramic tile, then I went with laminate flooring in the other part. And one of them called me and said, look, I've got these materials. I got some ceramic tile and I got some laminate flooring. Come get it, all you need. I said, no, I can't do that. He said, you're going to make me mad if you even say it. So, they all got together and chipped in and helped me put it down and got it, and we just come right along with it.
That's kind of friends.
That's friends there. Today, this morning, what I had to do, I run over to help one of them get his yard kind of fixed, but he's selling that big, nice houseboat, and he's got a bad prop on it. He just needed me to hand him a few tools there. Well, I didn't mind. If it wasn't for this, I'd still be over there visiting with him. So that's just the kind of friends they are.
Yeah, true friends who support and help each other through whatever life throws at you, because life does throw curveballs and challenges and roller coasters at us.
It does. But I'm the type person, like I say, I'm loyal to my job. I'm loyal to my friends. I'm loyal to my family, even though most of your friends are the friends that I have. Some of them's better than some of the family I have. But I love them all. There's nothing I wouldn't do for them.
Yeah.
So that's just the way it is.
And so, what's the future like for you? I mean, now that your book is out, are you intending to do like the signing trail? Because you mentioned you had a signing coming up in October. Or are
well,
you?
I'm enjoying getting out and meeting people. It's kind of new to me because I've been secluded for so long. So just like what we're doing today, and then I have some book signings and all. And I love doing this. It gives me something to do to get out and meet people and talk to them and visit with them. And because I've been drawn back so long away from people because I didn't trust them.
Sure.
So this is like a new life to me right now, and I'm enjoying it.
Oh, good.
So I'm going to sell every book or sign every book I can or visit with everybody. Originally, my wife and I thought about buying a motor home and loading a bunch of them up in it and just getting on the road and going around different places and having book signings. Because believe it or not, that is a popular subject around this part of the country. So many people want to talk to you about it because they've had some kind of experience or something that they don't want to talk to nobody else about. But they'll open up and talk to. Usually they'll open up and talk to me about it.
On that note, then, how widespread do you think the issue actually is of the abduction phenomenon? How often do you think it occurs? And so, I don't know, maybe 100 people. How many do you think are having that experience?
Out of 100, I'm going to say 70%.
Really?
I will. And it was surprising to me. I found out when I was doing this book, and I just happened to ask my mother and father and all, had they had any kind of experience and all. And of course, my mother said, "Well, I want to tell you something. I don't want to upset you." She was living in Ellisville, Mississippi. My brother was with her, and heard the dogs barking. And she said they opened the back door and looked, and all the cattle was running to the back fence and running. The dogs was running, and they seen a craft out there. And she said, all I could do, and this is in the book too, all I could do is say, Calvin's not here, Calvin's not here, he's not here. And said it scared the living daylights out of her.
Oh, so this is after your 1973 incident.
Oh yeah, she thought they was coming back. So my father said he just seen something in the sky. You know, you can't. Everybody sees something in the sky. It could be a satellite, it could be a planet. But he said he was working one day and he seen something in the sky and it run up and it split and one went one way and one went the other way. So, you know, most everybody has seen something and or experienced something, and a lot of people want to talk about it and they don't have nobody to talk to, and they just thrive when I get around because they want to talk to me about it. Even my wife's father, he was peculiar as everything, and he didn't believe nothing till he seen it. Well, he came in about 4 years after this, after we was married. He said, you know, I owe you an apology. I said, why is that? He said, well, I didn't believe you when this all happened. He said, but the other day he had some land with catfish ponds on it. He said, the other day I was in the back of the land property back there, and one come in over the pond, and he said it killed every fish that I had in the pond. And I seen it when it did it.
Wow.
And he said, I want to tell you I'm sorry. So, well, you don't owe me an apology, because I don't care if people believe me or not. And that's the mindset I got now. If somebody wants to believe, they're going to believe. If they don't want to believe, they're not. They want to keep an open mind about it. I would suggest that if they want to keep an open mind, get this book and read it and make their own mind up about it, because it's documented things in there. Polygraph tests, voice stress tests, witnesses. There's a lot of documented things in this book, and that's the reason that I wanted to release it.
So was it quite a relief for you to finally get it down on paper and go, it's done, it's out there, the story, I can take my hands off it a little bit? Was that a relief for you when that happened?
It was a big relief, and like I say, I got to trying to get it out there a little, what I call get it out there a little bit, and I've got to enjoy this. I enjoy sitting down and talking to people about it and all, and I enjoy visiting everyone. So, you know, now I'm on another mission to go around and talk to as many people as I can, let them know about the book. And I've even had people that couldn't afford one that I, ordered them one and paid for it myself. So that's how strongly I believe that this people that have an open mind need to read this. And if you doubt, you never will believe anyway, so it don't matter.
That's right. I mean, I've ordered my copy off Amazon a little while ago. I've got a paperback version coming through on the way, so I definitely look forward to having a good read through when it actually arrives. So
it's documented. Philip made sure of that. And that's one thing I admire him for. He was sure that everything in that book was documented. He's a great person.
He really is,
and I've
yeah.
enjoyed working with him.
Yeah, he's a wonderful guy. He's certainly, in terms of the UK scene, shall we say, if there is such a thing, there is such a word, he's certainly a prevalent and renowned member for doing so. Flying Disc Press is probably the only publishing house of its kind, so it's fantastic that you guys have got together and you've got this book out there. So, and your story, it's a powerful one. It's a convincing one. But even, like you said, anyone with an open mind should read it and go, you know what, actually there's something incredible happening around us, and we should take notice of it.
Oh, it is, and it opens some eyes, I believe. I really think it will.
I think we're drawing to a close here. I think we've covered your story in some quite incredible depth. I mean, um, I wonder what the future actually holds now. For those people who are having abduction experiences, I mean, is your aim to get them to come and talk to you, or are you just going?
I would love that, and I have people on Facebook now that's coming forward and talking about it, and you can kind of sort out the ones that's sincere and the ones that
Yeah,
ain't. So it's just a common sense issue there.
yeah, I get that. I get that.
But I would like to come back on your show one day and we talk about it a little later on.
Absolutely, I'd love to know like the success you've had and the stories that you've gathered along the way. That'd be fantastic to have. I'd love to have you back on as a guest. Perhaps
It
I
would
get
be
you.
great.
Perhaps get you and Phil on together. So
Oh, that would be fun.
yeah, that really would be fun. So I guess we shall call it a day here today, and
Okay.
we shall plan for that to happen in the soon future. So that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Well, let's do. Thank you, and I've enjoyed it. Thank you a lot.
Okay, wonderful stuff. I just think it makes such a difference when you can actually have a conversation as opposed to it being a 3-minute segment. Tell me about your story, and there's a news anchor obviously just criticizing you the entire way. And I saw that so often with stuff that I was involved with, and I was like, I need to have conversations with people, because if I'm interested in the subject, there's other people interested in the subject, and there's lots of people who have something really interesting to say, so let's go and talk to them. And that was my kind of get up and go to produce this series called Our Curious World.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm glad you did. I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to go and I'm going to have some tea, as they say, a very English
Good
term.
deal.
And I shall catch you again in the future very soon. So when this goes up online, I'll make sure that you get to see the video, how it looks, because I guess you don't get to see how it looks in terms of what the screen I'm looking at. So
No, I don't.
so that'll be.
Well, I appreciate it. Just send me an email or a link.
I will absolutely do so. So I was going to say, Kelvin. So thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to talking to you again very soon in the future.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Matty. That's okay, I guess. Thank you very much for taking the time out to join me here today. I really did appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. So here on that point, so please be sure to give me a like, subscribe, and share. I really do appreciate it. It lets me know that I'm producing the kind of content that you would like to listen to. If you would like to give us any feedback on any of our shows or get in contact with us in regards to our guests, please feel free to do so. If you would like to suggest a guest or would like to become one yourself, feel free to use our social media or email me at kristian@kristianlander.com. We really do appreciate it. We really do read every one of your messages that has gone out there so far, and we'd like to hear your feedback. So wherever it is that you're listening to this, whether it be audio or video, be sure to leave a comment and let us know. Until next time, this is Kristian Lander. This is Our Curious World.